Hello and welcome everyone to another inventRight.com YouTube show. My name is Andrew Krauss. I co-founded inventRight with Stephen Key over 20 years ago, and we've been coaching and mentoring inventors ever since. We've had students in 65 countries. A lot of times I'll do these shows and I'll do them by myself or I'll do them with Stephen, and other times we'll have a guest. And so today we have Stephen Hafif on, and he's with Cypress. And I met him, and he's got an interesting website and service where you can list your invention. And also it has the thing that I have him on today about is his research abilities. So it has some research capabilities, this website as well. So what I asked him to do is come on and share some of the resources that he uses with his solution so that you can just use directly. And there's some different, I think we're going to talk about the USPTO, Crunchbase, news aggregators, some things that I and Stephen don't typically talk about on the show. First off, I mean, Stephen, one of the things that you had mentioned is that people are running out and getting patents all the time, and they really need to research the industry and what are people doing in that space. Particularly, you're very focused with your research on what are people doing in that space right now. Not only what they're doing, but what are they investing in. So you mentioned 97% of patents never make any more money than the inventor invested in it. Nobody really knows where that number came about. Stephen and I use that sometimes because people are too quick to go and file a patent. One of the things the first thing that I wanted to talk about is the patent office. And you were looking at it from a slightly different angle here. You were looking at what are people investing in. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Right. So first of all, thank you for having me on. It's good to be on the inventRight YouTube channel. So like you said, just take a step back. The overwhelming majority of patents, fail to become commercialized. Then, that's not great because it creates these, legal roadblocks within innovation, and it leads to thousands of dollars lost in patent investments every year. So one of the strategies that we took at Cypress is we wanted to look at, before you go out and apply for a patent, we wanted to get a better understanding of, what is the market doing today? Which patents, would you be competing with theoretically if you had a patent today? And to really understand, what the market trends are based on the data that exists within the USPTO, so that you could go out and better strategize your patent application and give yourself a better chance at finding a commercial partner, and seeing the patent brought to life.
But you had mentioned here what you wrote to me. It seems kind of a little bit more complicated to research what are companies investing in. So can you give me a little bit of strategy there? If you're on the Patent Office website or Google Patents and you're looking for companies in the space of your invention, and you're looking at, are you looking at their entire patent portfolio, stuff they've filed recently, to see where they're going with things? Is it complicated, or is it really not that hard?
So if you have a good understanding of what your product is or what it would be, and you could write down and record a description of it, it's not that difficult to go into the USPTO and some of the public free data like patent search websites to figure out who has products that are similar to yours. And it'll take a lot of recording and plugging in different keywords that could represent your invention to figure out which companies own technologies that are closely related to yours. And it's a combination of taking patent information from the USPTO and looking at company patent involvement, but also going off of the USPTO and looking at their own websites and reading their landing pages and trying to understand what are they focused on today, and how does their patent portfolio reflect what they're working on, because you want to get a good understanding of not only what they've done in the past, but kind of what are they moving into in the future, which is why looking at the patent office and looking at the patent data can be very, very informative and help you a lot in that process of understanding what a company is interested in at a given point in time.
That's why I wanted to have you on, because I don't know if you're naturally like this, or you learned it in school, or you learned it on your own, but I can tell, very in-depth researcher. So let's say you look at this one company and you see, like, in the last year they've filed 5 patents with this type of product in that area. And so then you're saying, oh, then you could jump to their website, see if they have a press release, see if they have those new products out there yet. You can see trends. Now, I could see this being very distracting for inventors too. Maybe something isn't applicable to their particular invention, and now they're seeing trends, and there's opportunity there as well. But do you have any tips for the inventor to stay focused on their invention and what other people are doing in that space?
Right. So I think that, along the lines of that, a big problem with market research is that people are focusing on information that isn't really relevant today. So they'll, read news articles from 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and they'll really shape their patent application and strategic strategy based on, old information. So to stay focused, you really want to understand what is happening today. And to do that, there are certain resources that you could look at, to get that type of relevant information. So like one of them is LinkedIn. So if you wanted to understand what a company is focused on today, a good strategy is to look at what their key leaders and key personnel are, posting on LinkedIn, and what are they following, and a lot of times they'll kind of be active in showing that they're interested in a specific field or a specific technology, just by looking at what they posted today or yesterday or 3 weeks ago. And to stay focused on that, you really want to make sure that you know which market your idea fits within, and try to stay ingrained in that market, which is why understanding which companies are involved in the space in your specific market is very important, and not trying to be trying to stretch too far outside of that one circle.
Yeah, you had mentioned to me that research is not minutes, it's not hours, it's not days, but it's weeks. And yeah. I believe you. I can tell you're very, very thorough, and you can really prevent yourself from making some really costly mistakes by doing thorough research. So now the other one that you mentioned that's a good place to do research is Crunchbase. What is Crunchbase, and what are you looking for there, and why is it a great place to do research?
Right. So what Crunchbase is it's a platform. It's similar to LinkedIn, but it's primarily focused on startups and investors. So it has public information that you don't have to pay a fee for. You might have to fill out a profile, but I believe that's free, to identify which startups are working within a specific space and how recently they've received funding in that space. So, if you're looking for companies that maybe don't have involvement in the patent office, that are in your space and you would target as commercial partners, Crunchbase is a good place to go, because you could see which startups have received funding. And a good indicator of what an emerging market is going to be, and what an emerging technology is going to be, is one that's receiving a lot of funding in venture capital. So to look at which technologies are getting a lot of interest in Crunchbase could really show you within your market, where is money flowing, what is the future of my market. Look at Crunchbase to find startups that are getting funding in that field.
Is it mostly for tech, Crunchbase? I mean, if you're starting up a gardening implements company, are you going on Crunchbase, or is it more a web-based app? What do you find?
No, so if it's really important for you to understand what type of companies are in your market. So if you are working within the software field, or if you're working with autonomous vehicles or drones, then Crunchbase is a good resource, because they're more catered towards startups and things like that. But if you're more for consumer products, then there are other outlets that you should be looking for. So one is Amazon. So if Amazon is a great source for looking at, what products that are similar to your idea are being sold on Amazon, at what price points, which ones are the best sellers within that field, who owns them. This is all publicly available data that really help you reshape your patent application and an overall business strategy. But it's very important to the first step is to write down, what market am I in, and which public data sources, could I leverage to figure out what's going on within my field.
The other one that you mentioned was news aggregators. For those that people don't know, what is an example of a news aggregator? What can you find there? Right. Any links you share, we can include in the description down below for folks.
Sure. So a news aggregator is basically a source that collects articles from many different news publications. So it ensures that you really don't miss a beat or miss one. And one example is Google News. So if you do a quick search on Google and you click the News tab, that's considered a news aggregator. They have, information and news from many different sources, and that's really good for getting relevant information on what's going on today. Is to sort it by date and figure out what publications are happening within my ideas field.
That's great, and it's really simple to do. Like you said, it's like for Google, there's other news aggregators, and they could Google that. But you just go to Google, and then instead of clicking on shopping or images, you click on news, and that'll
Right.
give you the latest. It seems like you're maybe it's because you're in tech, but I think you can apply this to consumer products just as well. You really emphasize with your searching and your research what's going on today, what's going on right now. Now, it's beneficial to know what's happened in the past as well, so I would say that that's not a bad thing, but to be really on top of it, see where companies are going, it's going to increase the likelihood that you pique their interest because they're already going that direction. It could help you hit up the right conversation. You're talking about going on LinkedIn, seeing what they're posting, maybe even make a comment about it. Maybe you interact with the post and say, I've been following you on this or that. So really being on top of what's going on today is a big part of what I'm getting from you.
And a big component of it as well is, not only doing your own primary research. I think that in the market research process, it's very important to speak to a lot of people within the field. And you don't want to disclose what you're going to work on too much. But if you reach out to someone in the field and ask them for a quick informational interview, just to ask them a few questions about the market and where they think it's going and things like that, I think that could be very, very helpful as well. And, getting a live perspective of, the field before you get into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, your thoroughness with things. Have you always been like that? Did you learn it? Did you have a mentor that said, hey, is this just come naturally to you? How did you get to where you are with how thorough you are with your research?
So I think that it was really shaped in my own business. So in launching Cypress, I did a lot of thorough market research before because I didn't have that much exposure to the IP world, but I was very interested in it and I wanted to learn a lot about it. So I kind of dove in, and I felt that after spending a lot of time, months of doing research, it really helped me when I brought it to market, and I was really able to speak the same language as some of the key executives that I was approaching, and it was worth the time commitment in not jumping into it right away, but taking some time to really think about the market that I'm moving into.
Mm-hmm. Does it make you feel empowered and confident when you're talking to people?
Right, because it's a whole nother ball game when you're speaking the language. It's all about understanding the rhetoric, and you could touch certain buttons. If you know what they're interested in and you know where the market's going, you're much more likely to get conversations and get emails back from people versus if you just jump into something and try to figure it out as you go along.
Okay, cool. If people can check out your site, we'll put it down below in the description. Basically, people can list a patent on your site, and then there are research tools. They have to pay for them, but there are research tools that they can use as well. Is that a good way of describing Cypress, or you could probably do a better job than that?
The marketplace, it's a combination between a marketplace and search engine, and the marketplace is completely free of any listing fees or commissions. We try to encourage as many inventors to try to post their patents on there as much as possible, and you could include recent photos and videos and offer type and so on. And then as an additional rate, we do a lot of market research type of work for inventors.
Cool. I can tell by talking to you, and that's why I wanted you on the show. So guys, spend the extra time, dig deep. I think that's one of the big things that we got from Steve today. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yep. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for having me.
All right, everybody, take care. Keep inventing. We'll catch up with you next time. See ya. Bye.